So you want to sell life insurance over the phone? Well, I'm here to tell you that you are in the right place. I'm going to give you the 7 keys that you need to know to sell life insurance like an absolute pro over the phone. And yes, this will work even if you're a complete beginner. So let's jump into it, starting with number 1, which is your call intro, aka the first 7 seconds of your phone call. You know how they say never judge a book by its cover? Well, guess what? You, me, and everyone else judges books by their cover and judges people by their first impression. The intro to a phone call is a micro first impression that allows the prospect on the other end of the phone to decide if they're gonna hang up on you or continue listening to what you have to say. Here's exactly what you should say in the first 7 seconds of a phone call. Hey, is Martha there? Notice the vocal inflection. I always end on an up note. This catches their attention and leaves them with a little bit of curiosity as to what's gonna come next. It also doesn't make it sound like I hate my life, which is what it does sound like if you end on a down note, like this. Hey, is Martha there? So after that first line, they're typically gonna say something like, yeah, who's this? Or who's asking? To which you reply, hey Martha, it's Tim. This sentence should sound like a question. You basically wanna sound like you're their best friend from high school who's calling them and confused as to why they don't already have your number saved in their phone. Then you say, I'm getting back to you about that request you filled out on Facebook. You had listed your date of birth as December 29th, 1969. Is that correct? Notice how in every single one of those sentences, I constantly end on an up note, making it seem like they're all questions. Like I'm almost unsure of what I'm asking, but I still sound confident. The key to the first 7 seconds is to sound upbeat, confident, and sharp. You need to sound like they're the first phone call you made and you've never been hung up on in your entire life. Then you're gonna transition into the second key, the second part, which is to educate. You know how they say a confused person never buys? Well, that is the truth. It's our job as life insurance agents not to just sell someone, but to leave them in a better spot than we found them. And part of that is educating them on insurance. I'll always pre-frame the conversation and say something like, I'm gonna briefly explain to you how all of the programs in your area work, and if you don't understand something, be sure to stop me. I will not move forward unless you understand. It's my job to make sure that this all makes sense to you. Can you do that for me? By doing this, I'm letting them know that I'm not here to sell them. I'm here to educate them and be their consultant. So I'll start off by explaining the difference between term and whole life, and then I'll explain the difference between an agent and a broker. I always like to use the Jake from State Farm analogy to explain the difference between a broker and an agent. I'll say something like, you know Jake from State Farm, right? That guy with the khakis. The thing is, he only represents companies from State Farm. So if that's not the best rate that you're going to qualify for, he's not going to be able to show you any other options. So Jake's job is just to sell you on State Farm products. Whereas if you work with a broker who works with all of the companies, they're going to be able to shop the market for you, find you the best rate that you can qualify for. Do you think it would make more sense for you to work with an agent who's only going to show you one company, or a broker who can shop the market for you? Obviously, they're going to say a broker. Next, I'll move over to talking about term versus whole life. If you're selling whole life, which this video is about selling final expense, so you are, I will use the analogy of term is like milk, eggs, and cheese. So it goes something like this. Ms. Jones, term insurance only lasts for a period of time. It's for a term, and then it terminates, right? So it's kind of like milk, eggs, and cheese. It's great while it lasts, but once it expires, you gotta throw it out. Whereas whole life lasts forever. Whole life is more like a Twinkie, for example. They pump that thing full of preservatives and you can throw it in your cabinet and 50 years later, you could come back and it'll still be there. That's how whole life is. See, it never expires and it lasts for your whole life. Now, this is something we usually recommend for people in retirement because it's guaranteed to pay out as long as you pay the premiums. So Ms. Jones, based off of your situation, do you think it would make more sense for you to go with a term policy that's gonna expire at a certain point, or whole life coverage that'll be there when you need it? Obviously, they're gonna say whole life. So now that we've provided them with a little bit of background, it's time to move to the next step. Label them with a problem. This is where, and excuse my French, gets real. Now we're gonna figure out their why. Everybody that buys insurance has a why, and why is made up of 3 different parts. Who, which is their beneficiary. What, which is what is the situation they're protecting the beneficiary from, the downside. And how, which is how the life insurance protects their beneficiary from the what, which is the bad situation. So how do we uncover their why? First, we need to ask them whether they're covering a burial or a cremation. Let's say Martha Jones lives in Texas and she says that she wants to be buried. So I'll say something like this: with you being in Texas and wanting to be buried, the average funeral cost, and I will literally look up the funeral cost for their area, the average funeral cost for a burial is about $10,000. Now, did you want to leave any money behind on top of that, or pay off any debts that you have, or just cover the cost of the funeral? Now, at this point, we're trying to figure out what number Mrs. Jones' beneficiary, let's say it's her daughter, would be on the hook for. Now, let's say Martha's funeral will be $10,000 and she also has $2,500 in credit card debt. So her total cost is $12,500. Now I'm going to repeat this back to her. Okay, and just so I understand, you're looking to see if you would qualify for a program that would make sure that your daughter doesn't have to pay that $12,500 bill out of pocket. Am I off base in saying this? I always want to maintain a childlike curiosity. Never assume anything. Ask and make them tell you. Next, I'm going to transition and ask her, got it. And while I'm pulling everything up, what got you thinking about this kind of stuff? Because people don't usually just sit around thinking about life insurance. What kind of jogged you to start, looking into this? This is where the real selling begins. Most people will usually say something like, oh, well, I'm never getting any younger, or maybe one of their friends just recently passed away without life insurance. Now, at this point, you need to dig deeper into whatever information they just gave you. You are a detective, and in the beginning, you are gathering clues so that you can make your case and articulate their why back to them later on in the sale. So let's say that their friend just passed away, for example. I'll say something like, I'm so sorry to hear that. It's especially tough for the family when they not only lose someone that they care about, but then they also have to go through the stress of figuring everything out with the burial bill. I'm curious though, how did your friend's family go about paying for the funeral? Oh my goodness, so the kids had to pay for the funeral out of pocket. That's terrible. I'm guessing that you saw that and, from an outside perspective, decided that that wasn't something you were gonna allow to happen to your family. Is that right? Yes, 100%. It is so much easier when you already have that stuff handled for them. Bingo. I just discovered that they saw their friends' kids go through a situation that they're unwilling to let happen to their own kids. That is part of her why. So next, we're gonna move into number 4, which is to overview the pain. Picasso, Van Gogh, Rembrandt, it's time to paint a picture. Okay, Martha, and to make sure that I completely understand, if you weren't able to qualify for one of the programs in your area today, and you passed away without any coverage, how would that affect your daughter? What exactly would that look like? This question is just like the last one we asked. We're gonna dig deep and paint the picture so your prospect can visualize exactly what would happen. So Martha says, well, she'd have to pay for it out of pocket. I don't know anything about your daughter's situation or where she's at, but that $12,500 bill, is that something that she would be able to just pay for out of her bank account or whatever? Or would she more than likely have to take out a loan to pay that? She'd have to take out a loan. Okay, I see. Now, I'm curious, does your daughter have any kids? Like, do you have any grandkids? Oh, she has 2 kids. So do you think that having to pay off that loan while also trying to raise her kids, do you think that that maybe would put some stress on her and her family? Yeah, I agree. So let's make sure that that never happens, because I can tell that you care a lot about your daughter. She's really lucky to have a mom like you that's actually thinking about her. And now I'm going to transition into the next step, which is health questions. Underwriting. This is everybody's favorite part of the sale. Just kidding. I'm going to be super brief when talking about this because it's honestly really, really simple. Now, I highly recommend you to use an underwriting or quoting tool. This will shortcut all of the BS that you'll deal with trying to match the right person with the right company and getting people approved, especially as a new agent. Just cut all of it out and just use an underwriting tool like FEX toolkits, or there's a bunch of them out there. Literally just ask them the health questions, plug it into the quoter, and then it'll tell you the best price and the companies that will accept them. Now, as far as the health questions to ask, I recommend for you to use the survey sheet that we have attached in the Skeleton Key sales script. If you don't know what that is, it's linked down below this video in a PDF. And we also have another video that shows exactly how to go through that script, which you should definitely watch after you're finished watching this one. All right, so once we've gone through the health questions and pulled everything up, now we're gonna move into step 6, which is giving the quotes. There's a very specific way that you'll want to do this, especially with telesales. Have your prospect grab a pen and paper. Tell them to write down 3 numbers. These 3 numbers are going to be the coverage amounts that you're showing them quotes for. Always start with the highest number first. to price anchor. Let's say we're showing her 20,000, 15,000, and 12,500. Next, we're gonna have them write an equal sign next to each of the coverage amount. Then I'll have them write the price next to each number individually. Now I'm gonna have them circle whatever option makes the most sense for them. I'll say, okay, I'm gonna tell you why I had you write it this way, because it's a little weird, but first, can you just circle the option that makes the most sense for you? The reason that I had you write it that way is because if you pay the small one, when something happens or if something happens, the insurance company will pay the big one. Does that make sense? There you go. Once they pick the price, now we get into step number 7, which is closing the deal, sealing this thing up, and starting to fill out the application. So I'll say something like this. So the next step is to go ahead and fill out an application to see if you get accepted. This is gonna make sure that your daughter's not gonna have to pay for that $12,500 bill and go into debt. Does that make sense? Perfect. Now I'm just gonna verify a couple of pieces of information with you real quick. Now at this point, I'm pulling up the application on my computer and I'm starting to fill it out as I'm confirming the information. Ladies and gentlemen, that is how to sell final expense over the phone as a complete beginner. If you want to hear the full breakdown of our world-class telesales final expense script, check out this video right here. And if you want to work high-quality branded leads and get daily sales training from our team, click the link below this video to apply to work with us. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.